Reanimator's my favorite strategy, and why wouldn't it be? It always notices when I dress up for the occasion, it holds the door open for me, it makes me feel seen, damn it. I feel like Reanimator's in a similar boat to like mill, discard, and control decks, where Wizards finds them unfun, so they don't give those decks a lot of support, and the little support that those decks do have cost $1 billion. I'm looking at you, every mill commander ever. So it's easy to think you can't play these strategies on a budget, but don't worry, your local paper peyote dealer's coming in with the equivalent of a gateway drug to reanimating in Commander on a budget. Today, we're going to be going over the basics of a Reanimator deck to give you the groundwork for piloting one of these decks yourself. We're going to look at Commander options for reanimating on a budget to give you an idea on how a leader of one of these decks feels. We're going to cover bomb creatures that you can start cheating into play on a budget, because that's the best part, along with ways to fill our graveyard with these bombs. Of course, we'll talk about the reanimation cards themselves, some test hands and gameplay explanations, along with showing you 3 example Commander decks for reanimating on a budget, as well as some personal and community tips from the years of playing Reanimator. So, if that sounds interesting to you, buckle your seatbelt, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into it. Welcome to the wonderful world of Reanimator decks. For those of you not in the know of what a Reanimator deck is, let me explain. A Reanimator deck is based around utilizing your graveyard as a second hand. You fill your graveyard with powerful creatures. You then return those creatures from your graveyard onto the battlefield using Reanimator spells, often on much earlier turns than intended and for less mana than the creature we are returning in the first place. These decks recur these creatures to use their large power and toughness, powerful abilities, or both to bring home games. So let's talk about the type of commanders you can run if you're looking into a reanimation build, especially on a budget. So we're going to cover 3 types of commanders you can run if you're looking to run a Reanimator deck, especially on a budget. The first being a mill engine commander. Mill engine commanders provide their own form of mill built into the command zone. These commanders are great options for Reanimator decks, as the deck won't have to run as much self-mill, since the commander is a dependable, recurable form of self-mill. Sidisi Brood Tyrant is a great example of a mill engine commander. This Sultai commander provides a mill 3 on ETB and attack, with an added bonus of creating 2/2 zombies when creatures hit our graveyard from the library. These types of commanders act as gasoline for the deck, setting up powerful reanimation turns. These mill engine commanders are my personal favorite type of reanimation commanders. Taval, the balance scale, that's my absolute favorite deck I've pretty much ever made. So the second type of commander you can choose for a reanimation build is a reanimation engine commander. A reanimation engine commander are the metaphorical match to the metaphorical gasoline that the mill engine commanders were. These commanders have built-in reanimation. These commanders are a great option, as a lot of the cards that reanimate cost a pretty penny, so having the reanimation built into our commander will be a huge help. The new Bader Ancestor's Voice is a great example of a reanimation engine commander. This Obzon commander rewards life gain with 1/1 counters and life loss with recurring creatures equal to the amount of life we lost or less. These types of commanders are really good for, again, saving money, because you won't have to pick up some of these expensive reanimation pieces. Literally just whichever one you're feeling the most. Do you like having a guaranteed full graveyard the most? Or do you like having guaranteed recursion the most? Or do you like the third type of commander you can run for a Reanimator deck? The third type of commander you can choose for a Reanimator deck are called plug-in commanders. Plug-in commanders aren't inherently built for Reanimator decks, not providing mill or reanimation, but instead have abilities that work really, really well with Reanimator strategies. Kess, Dissident Mage, is an incredible example of a commander like this. Kess, for all intents and purposes, is a Spellslinger commander, allowing us to reuse instants and sorceries from our graveyard once a turn. Very strong as a Spellslinger/Storm deck, clearly, but in Reanimator, where 90% of the deck is reanimation spells that are instants or sorceries, especially when you're on a budget, Kess all of a sudden becomes a second copy of most of our reanimation spells, which is incredible for us, especially on a budget. Kess also doubles as utility because we can cast some of our instants and sorceries we've accidentally milled with some of our self-mill effects. So moving on from the rough outlines of what makes a good commander for a Reanimator deck, let's talk about what makes a good bomb for a Reanimator deck. The stuff we're going to be trying to cheat out of our graveyard into play. What are we looking for here? First, we're looking for large power and toughness. Right off the bat, that's going to be nice. Something like a 12/12 Trample Galta Primal Hunger is probably going to be scary if it comes out on turn 3 or 4. Not to mention evasion. Outside of large stats, creatures with evasion are going to be great as they ensure damage. Ashen Rider or Sepulchral Primordial are great targets that have evasion on them. in the form of Flying and Intimidate, respectively. Ashen provides removal, and Sepulchral provides Reanimation, which you gotta imagine we love. And lastly, just really good, powerful effects that warp the board, like something like Sir Conrad that turns creatures hitting the bin from battlefield or the library, along with creatures leaving your graveyard, into damage to each opponent. This is one of the best cards, if not the best card you can run in a Reanimator list. It's also on a budget. It also has built-in mill. It's just incredible. Or, of course, you could just have a creature that does all three, like Titan of Industry, who has a huge power and toughness, evasion in the form of trample, and 4 really powerful abilities to choose from. Past that, there's also creatures with abilities like cycling that can be discarded to draw a card, along with creatures that have the channel ability, which allows you to discard the creature from your hand for an effect. This is great as a built-in way to put itself in the graveyard for us to reanimate. So, stuff like Agasaur Wreck, which we can cycle for 2 and a green to protect something on our board, as well as dump an 8/8 trample into our graveyard. Yeah, it seems pretty good. Or something like Colossal Sky Turtle, which is a 6/5 flying ward 2 that we can channel to either bounce something or channel to return a card from our graveyard. Again, that's awesome. Past that basic outline of what makes good bombs to be reanimating, just pick your favorite ones. If you just like crack a pack and get a fat creature that you're not sure where to put it in your Reanimator deck, dude. If not me, then who, says your Reanimator deck? If not me, then who? So now that we've got some bombs to choose from and dump into our grave, how are we going to be dumping them into our grave? We have the Mill Engine Commander if you're choosing to go that route, but all these decks are going to have to include some self-mill so that we can fill our graveyard with creatures. And wouldn't you know it, there's tons of ways to self-mill on a budget. The first way is just straight up self-mill. These are going to be effects that take cards from the top of our library and put them into our graveyard. So cards like Aftermath Analyst, providing a mill 4 when it ETBs, Stitcher Supplier, providing a mill 3 when it ETBs or dies, or Undead Butler, providing a mill 3 when it ETBs, while also being on creatures, can all be very powerful in a Reanimator deck, as well as more permanent recurring effects to mill us, like Cemetery Tampering, which will mill us on our upkeep, as well as let us play a hideaway card for free if we've got 20 or more cards in grave. Perpetual Timepiece is another banger. It's just an artifact that you can tap to have yourself mill to, but you can also exile it to shuffle as many cards out of your grave back into your deck, which if someone's trying to exile your graveyard, super strong. Also interacts really well with Sir Conrad to ping opponents for a bunch of creatures leaving your graveyard. Or something like Crawling Sensation, which offers a mill on your upkeep and then gives you 1/1 bugs when you mill stuff. That seems fine. And then you've got other one-time mill effects that are good that aren't on creature bodies. Stuff like the Everflowing Well is an artifact that when it ETBs, you mill to, draw to, and it'll flip into a really powerful land. Grapple with the Past is a sorcery that allows you to mill cards and then return a creature from your graveyard to your hand if you want to. And Grizzly Salvage, same idea. Mill cards, return a land or creature to your hand if you want to. All of these help fill our graveyard. You've also got self-discard cards like Thrill of Possibilities or Faithless Looting, where they allow you to discard your own cards out of your hand to draw cards. So if we've got any bombs that are stuck in our hands, we can now get them out of our hands. So these are always great options in a deck like this. Or cards like Fauna Shaman that turn the self-discard into a really powerful engine where we can now start tutoring up creatures out of our deck by discarding bombs. That seems fine with me. We've also got Surveil effects, which allow us to look at our top X cards and then put any amount of them back on top or in our graveyard. So stuff like Notion Rain, where we can Surveil 2, draw 2. Not only good card advantage, also a good way to put bombs off the top of our deck into our graveyard. Or something like the Grim Captain's Locker, which is a more reoccurring form of Surveil. It can tap to Surveil 1, as well as giving creatures in our graveyard escape. Both of those great in a Reanimator deck. So let's move on to the real point of this video, the reanimation spells, okay? Because it's easy to look at stuff like Reanimate, or Dance of the Dead, or Corpse Dance, or Animate Dead, and look at the price tags on those, and be like, I really can't play Reanimator. And that's fair. It's also easy to think, I could play Reanimator, it's just going to be slow, I won't be able to run like any 1, 2, 3 drop reanimation spells. Not necessarily true. You can't run any 1 drops unless you want to throw down for like an $8, $10 reanimate. But there's actually tons of 2 and 3 drop reanimation spells that are actually really good. Restart Sequence from Assassin's Creed is actually fantastic. For 3 and a black, we can reanimate something from grave, which isn't a bad going rate, but if we dealt damage with an assassin or our commander, it costs 1 and a black, which is an insanely good going rate. That's actually insane. We'll definitely take that. Especially when our commander's evasive, like the Kess that we were talking about, or the Baiter we were talking about. Soul Exchange is a 2 and 2 black sorcery that will return a creature from grave directly into play if we exile a creature in exchange. So if your commander makes tokens, like the aforementioned Sidisi we talked about, this can be an incredibly effective way to reanimate. Persist is one of my favorites, being a 1 and a black sorcery that returns a non-legendary creature from your graveyard into play with a -1/-1 counter on on it, so if it's not legendary, it's coming out for 2 mana, baby. Love me some Persist. Apprentice Necromancer is actually a decent option, being a 2-drop 1/1 that sacks itself to pay a black and reanimate something. Give it haste. This is a 3-drop reanimation spell, and even if you wait a whole rotation, paying 1 mana to reanimate something on a future turn, not bad. Especially when you're pairing it with something like Karmic Guide, which will reanimate on ETB, or something like Phyrexian Delver, which will reanimate on ETB. All of these cards are very inexpensive. You can buy these on a budget, and they will chain a ton of creatures out of your graveyard. Footsteps of the Goyo is a fantastic sorcery, being 2 and a black. It will return something into play, but you have to sack it at the end of turn. But when you have bombs like Ashen Rider or Mere Battlesphere with really, really good enter the battlefield effects, we really don't care that much. One of the best reanimation spells you can run on a budget is Victimize. Returns 2 creatures into play tapped for 2 and a black just by sacking a creature. This again can interact well with Reanimator commanders that make tokens like Sidisi, so we have an easy creature to sack for it. But in most reanimation decks, we're fine with sacking creatures because we can just reanimate them to get more ETBs and death triggers. That's a good deal on our end. Doomed Necromancer is another fantastic option, being 3 and a black for a creature that you can tap and sacrifice to reanimate something, or a creature like Priest of the Fell Rites, which is very similar. Tap it, pay 3 life, reanimate something. It's a black and a white to play. Both of these are great for our wallets and our deck. Now, moving on from the 3-cost under reanimation spells, we've got some 4 and over CMC reanimation spells that have some built-in punch to them, so, you know, these are definitely worth running. Unburial Rites is 4 and a black to return a creature, but has flashback for 3 and a white, so not only can we play this card twice, if we accidentally mill into it, we can still play it. Charnel Serenade is a 5-drop that surveils 3, then will return a creature from grave directly into play with a finality counter on it. Then we exile Charnel Serenade with 3 suspend counters on it. So in 3 turns, we'll do it again, and that's including the exile it with 3 counters on it. So every 3 turns, we get a free reanimation. I like that. Speaking of reanimation coming back, Dread Return is one of my favorites. Being 2 and 2 black for a reanimation spell that has flashback for sacking 3 creatures. I love this card alongside Mere Battlespheres and stuff like that. You can play this, reanimated Mere Battlesphere. Mere Battlesphere makes 4 1/1s. You flash back Dread Return by sacking 3 of the 1/1s to reanimate another bomb. Obsessive Stitcher is another one that I actually wasn't familiar with, being a 3-drop with a built-in looting effect by tapping it, and you can also pay 2 a black and a blue, sacrifice it to reanimate something. That seems fine. Similar to Obsessive Stitcher, we've got Broodheart Engine providing you a Surveil on your upkeep, as well as a pay 2, a black, a green, sack it, return a creature. Wake the Dead is another fantastic option, being X and 2 black. You can only play it during your opponent's combat. It returns X creatures from your graveyard into play, and you sack them at the end of turn. And again, when you have stuff like Mere Battlesphere or Ashen Rider, that's fine. Or if you just want like a massive bomb reanimation piece, you could run the Cauldron of Eternity. Cost 10 and 2 black, cost 2 less for each creature in your grave. Whenever a creature dies, exile it. You can pay 2 and a black, tap it, pay 2 life, reanimate something from your grave. This is a constant form of reanimation. Plus, the exile effect only happens if the creature dies, so if we mill creatures, we're still fine. This is a really good card, let alone good card on a budget. Some more notable reanimation spells include Rise of the Witch King, which is 2 a green and a black sorcery. Everyone sacks something. If you sacked something, you reanimate something. Liliana Death's Majesty is a planeswalker who has a mill effect as her +1, a reanimation effect as her -3, and a board wipe as her ultimate, which is pretty good. Writ of Return is just a 5-drop reanimation spell that encodes onto a creature, and whenever that creature deals damage, you get to cast a copy of Writ of Return for free, which is really good if your commander has evasion. Marshal's Anthem is one of my favorites if you can make it work, being 2 and 2 white for an enchantment that gives your board 1/1. It's also got multi-kicker for 1 and a white, so as many times as you can pay 1 and a white, you get to reanimate something, which, you know, late game, it's really, really good. And finally, for my recommendations, Lich Knight's Conquest is really good, being a 5-drop sorcery. You can sack as many artifacts, enchantments, or tokens as you want and reanimate that many creatures. If your commander's making tokens, like Sidisi, this is nuts. And if you're looking for more of a mass graveyard reanimation effect on a budget, there's not a ton of options, but you do have Bringer of the Last Gift, Rejoin the Ranks, and Boneyard Parlay, which can all bring back your full graveyard or at least a large grip of creatures from your graveyard. So, with a basic outline of a Reanimator deck in your hands, let's talk about some personal tips for running a Reanimation deck. We'll hop onto Moxfield, we'll run a couple of playtests with 3 mock-up lists. You can find those 3 lists down below, and then we'll finish this video up. It seems counterintuitive to run recursion cards in a Reanimator deck. Stuff like Eternal Witness, Timeless Witness, Archaeomancer, stuff that will bring back cards from your graveyard to your hand. Why would I want to do that? I'm trying to bring stuff directly into play. You're also trying to mill yourself a lot, and if you accidentally mill into an important piece piece that's not a creature, you can now have an Eternal Witness, an Archaeomancer, a Timeless Witness to get one of those back. And even if you mill into your Archaeomancer, your Timeless Witness, your Eternal Witness, you can just reanimate that when that ETBs, get back the non-creature card you need from your graveyard. They're really, really useful. Even just having a few of them is enough because you're going to be milling so much, you're going to probably see them, and it's just incredibly useful. Throw a few of them into your deck. On a similar note, make sure most of your removal and card draw are creatures, because if you need card draw in a pinch or you need a removal piece in a pinch, it's going to be way easier in a Reanimator deck to get that, because you can just now reanimate that piece out of your graveyard. Someone plays a artifact that's absolutely about to warp the game and end the game, you can now just play your Persist on your Reclamation Sage, Rec Sage enters, who cares if it dies from the 1/1, we blow up their artifact that was about to end the game. It's way more useful to have your removal and your card draw be creatures, trust me. Also, we touched on it a little in the video, but make sure your bombs have powerful ETB effects, powerful death triggers, or like have haste, because you're going to want to make sure you get some kind of value off these big things you're ETBing. Plus, some of the budget reanimation effects will have you sack the creatures you reanimated at the end of your turn, and if we can get even more value off that sack, that's really nice. So stuff like Ashen Rider is going to be an MVP if you're on a budget. Having an exile target permanent on ETB and on death, extremely good. Moving on to community tips from the Patreon, Aaron Allard says that if we're going for more of a spiky Reanimator list, run multiple combos or win cons in case our graveyard is removed and we lose pieces for one of our combos or win cons to fire off. He also says for more casual reanimation builds, we should focus on quality or quantity of the graveyard, not both, because doing both can be very difficult. This is actually a really good point. If you want to fill your graveyard with a ton of creatures and then play stuff like Lord of Extinction and run that kind of reanimation strategy, then build your deck accordingly. If you want to run a reanimation strategy where you're putting really high quality creatures into your graveyard, one at a time, reanimating them back into play, build accordingly for that as well. Super good point. We've also got Dr. Odd, who pleads with us to please run Graveyard Protection, which is a very good point. And if you're wondering, what's Graveyard Protection? You can run cards that give you, the player, hexproof to prevent cards that say exile target player's graveyard. That's a little niche in my opinion. The way I like to do this is run shuffle your graveyard into your deck effects. So stuff like Perpetual Timepiece is really good. Like we mentioned, shuffle any amount of cards from your graveyard back into your deck. Or stuff like Psychic Spiral can be really, really gross. Being 4 and a blue, shuffle your whole graveyard back into your deck, and then target player mills the amount of cards you just shuffled back in. So you save your graveyard from being exiled, give your deck plenty of more fuel to mill and start reanimating again, and you have whatever deck at the table has the least chance of touching their own graveyard. You mill 30 cards, my guy. Oh, I just got rid of a ton of gas? Awesome. And then finally, we've got Grayson Miones, who says, if you're going for more of a mid-range Reanimator build, run bodies that can cheat in bodies. Stuff like Karmic Guide, Phyrexian Delver, Sun Titan. Love that shit. Great suggestion. So with that, we're going to hop over on Moxfield. I'm going to show you the 3 decks that I've mocked up for the Mill Engine Commander, the Reanimation Engine Commander, and the Plug and Play Commander. We're going to show you some test gameplay, how it feels to run a Reanimator deck, especially the 3 different types of Reanimator deck, what kind of plays you should be looking for, and how you should be piloting one of these decks all together. So let's hop on to Moxfield so we can take a look at these decks.
So jumping over onto Moxfield, I'm going to go over the 3 types of commanders we talked about: the Mill Engine Commanders, the Reanimation Engine Commanders, and the commanders that can amplify the Reanimator strategy with their abilities, even though they're not inherently Reanimator commanders. The first one we're going to go over is a Mill Engine Commander. Our example here is going to be Sidisi Brood Tyrant. This is a perfect example of a budget mill commander for a reanimation shell, being 1 a black, a green, and a blue for a 3/3 that provides 3 mill on attack or ETB, and whenever we mill 1 or more creatures, we get a 2/2 black zombie. So built-in engine for tokens on top of being a mill engine is incredibly useful. We're going to try to mill one of our 14 huge bombs we run in the deck. You'll notice that all of our card draw, our mana ramp, and our removal are creatures. This just makes it easier for us to 1, trigger Sidisi's, make a 2/2 whenever we mill, and 2, give us more options for utility to reanimate. Like if someone plays a problem creature, for example, instead of there being a go for the throat in our graveyard, there's a Ravenous Chupacabra that we can now reanimate to then kill the problem creature. Same idea with card draw, I guess mana ramp, but mana ramp's mainly there for the Sidisi triggers. We got a small 9-card package of ways to mill ourselves because, again, our commander is going to provide plenty of that. as well as a 12-card reanimation package so we can get back the bombs that we are milling into. Of course, we run a small recursion package in case we mill into anything that we want to get back. Of course, we've got a small recursion package made up of Timeless Witness and Colossal Sky Turtle in case we mill into any of our recursion that's not a creature that we want to get back, as well as a graveyard protection package made up of 3 ways to shuffle our graveyard back into our deck with Psychic Spiral, Blessed Respite, and Perpetual Timepiece, as well as Sir Conrad, which will ping each opponent for 1 whenever a creature leaves our graveyard. So, paired with any of these, that's a lot of damage, and if anyone tries to exile our graveyard when he's in play, we can threaten some good damage, so he's always good. As well as a pretty decent land package. This deck came in at $50.08, so we're 8 cents over budget here. Cut a land if you wanna. We're gonna go ahead and scroll down for a test hand and run some gameplay to show you what a Reanimator deck like this plays like, so let's jump into it. This is a hand I would definitely keep, so we will play test this. Draw a card for going first, of course. We're gonna start things off with a Forest. Pass back around to us. Unfortunately, we didn't get one of our 2-mana dorks because we really want to see Sidisi on turn 3, but that's okay. Pass back around. There's the 3-mana dork we wanted. We're going to go ahead and play a Loyal Drake at the beginning of combat. If we control our commander, we draw a card. Pass back around to us. Play our 4th land. We're going to play Sidisi. When Sidisi ETBs, we mill 3 cards. We're going to hit a 3-fold Thunderhulk, a land, and a restart sequence. Since we hit a creature, we will get a token of a zombie. And then during combat, we will also draw a card from Loyal Drake. We'll pass on that note. Comes back around us. We will draw into another mana dork. We'll play our land for turn. And this turn, we can actually do something pretty spicy. We're going to play Footsteps of the Goryo, which will return a creature card from our graveyard into play, sacrifice it at the end of turn. So we'll get back 3-fold Thunderhulk, which will create us a number of 1/1 gnomes equal to its power, which is a 3/3 when it enters. So we will get 3 1/1 gnomes. Follow it up with a Ghostly Pilferer. Move to combat, draw a card off Loyal Drake. Swing with Sidisi to mill us 3 cards. We're going to hit an Ornithopter of Paradise and 2 lands. That will make us another zombie. We'll sack our 3-fold at the end of turn. It's alright because we can just recur it again with one of our other pieces, which we will definitely do. Comes back around to us. We will draw. Right now we're pretty set up. We have a pretty good amount of power on the board. We've got a good mill engine, a piece of recursion in our hand if we mill into anything crazy. We've got Agasaur to cycle if anyone tries to get rid of Sidisi, which will then put Agasaur in the graveyard for us to reanimate. We've got Timeless Witness to get back recursion pieces that we mill into. I'm kind of just good firing off on this loop each turn until we run into something that is just until we run into some serious bombs that can warp the board that we can recur, because right now we're going to be having a steady pace of card draw and power hitting our board with the token engines that we have, with the token and draw engines that we have on board, as well as a discard engine on board. Like I said, protection in the form of Agasaur in our hand, some recursion, some more recursion. So right here I would swing because I want to see if I can hit another bomb. We get a Kishla Skimmer, a Evolving Wilds, and a Karuga, which could be really, really interesting. So we're going to put those into grave. We're going to get another zombie here. So what I'd do here is I'd wait to cast Wake the Dead on an opponent's combat, which returns X target creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield, and we sack them at the end of turn. So we will probably pass after this. During another player's combat, we're going to go ahead and cast Wake the Dead for 2. And we will return a 3-fold Thunderhulk and Karuga. We'll have 3-folds go off first and make us 3 more gnome tokens. And then we'll have Karuga go off to draw us a card for each other non-land permanent we control with a mana cost of 3 or higher, which is Loyal Drake, 3-fold, and Sidisi. So that will draw us 3 cards. Really good hits there. We're then going to drop an Aftermath Analyst to mill us 4 cards, which is a Swamp, a Muldrifter, a Forest, and a Swamp. The Muldrifter hitting grave will make us another zombie. And that's literally the gameplay loop right there. You're getting more and more power from all the different graveyard engines you have in play. Every time you hit something like a Karuga where you're like, oh, I can get another burst of value, you go ahead and reanimate that. The Karuga just hit us another form of reanimation with Soul Exchange. And with Soul Exchange, you have to sack a creature with all these tokens, very easily doable. So that's kind of the gameplay loop with this deck, and most mill commander builds are going to have a similar gameplay loop where you try to play the commander, mill yourself, get value engines from your graveyard being full, and then do stuff like this. So moving on from this, we're going to talk about the Reanimation engine commanders. So for the Reanimation engine commanders, I'm working with Bader Ancestor's Voice as the example deck list. Again, you can find all 3 of these deck lists down below with the Moxfield links. Bader is 2, a white, a black, and a green for a 3/5 flying lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, put a number of 1/1 counters on up to 1 target creature you control equal to the amount of life you gained. Then you can reanimate a creature from your graveyard into play with a mana cost equal to or less than the amount of life you lost this turn. Gain life, buff up our creatures, lose life, reanimate our creatures. Really interesting. Again, all your Reanimation engine commanders, all your mill engine commanders, they're going to be having a base of, hey, I provide mill or I provide reanimation, and then around that, in the case of Sidisi, it's a token engine. In the case of Bader, it's a life gain, life loss theme. They will have another built-in theme that just makes creating the deck more fun. So with Bader, he's a reanimation deck with life loss, life gain sub-themes to get even more value on top of reanimating, which I think is great. In this list, we run slightly less bombs because with Bader, we can use the life loss to recur slightly smaller creatures and then the life gain to buff up those smaller creatures to turn them into bomb-like threats. So slightly less bombs in this deck is actually fine. Plus, the life gain sub-theme gives us access to really powerful bombs like Nykthos Paragon, which gives a 1/1 counter equal to the amount of life we gain to each of our creatures on our end step. Vona lets us pay 7 life and destroy a permanent, which will tap into his life loss sub-theme. Tavesh has lifelink, and he gives us an XX demon equal to the amount of life we gained this turn. There's just a ton of really cool built-in value you get with this commander while still being Reanimator. I like it. And again, just figure out what flavor of Reanimator the commander you're picking out is, whether it's a mill commander or a reanimation commander or the third one we're going to talk about, and then figure out the other thing that commander does, and then build your deck accordingly. So something like Ghost Chieftain is a straight up, you can play a creature from your graveyard deck, so maybe your bombs would have slightly lower CMC, so you're actually able to cast them from grave. Maybe your deck's more focused on filling your grave really quickly, so you can get Ghost Chieftain's cost down. Find out that Reanimator strategies really harmonize well with whatever else the commander's trying to do. We also got access to some cool +1/+1 counter interaction in this deck with stuff like Lathiel, Reluctant Role Model, or Willow Dusk Essence Seer. Willow Dusk is even a bonus because it gives 1/1 counters equal to the amount of life we gained. Exactly what we're trying to do in here. We run a lot of the draw cards, lose life forms of card draw because reanimating for the amount of life we lost. That seems pretty good. We run 11 cards that can help fill our graveyard. This might seem a little low, but seeing that like Undead Butler is a 2-drop, Stitcher Supplier is a 1-drop, Aftermath Analyst is a 2-drop with a built-in sack outlet on it, even something like Yathan Roadwatcher is a 4-drop, we'll be able to reanimate these with our commander fairly easy, so we can just chump block with them, reanimate to get more mill out of them. We run Sir Conrad and Perpetual Timepiece for some graveyard protection. 15 cards that help us lose life so we can reanimate more. Stuff like Greed, where we can pay a black, pay 2, draw a card. Stuff like Twilight Prophet that reveals our top card. We lose life equal to the CMC. That'll definitely help us reanimate. As well as a 10-card life gain package. This is a little smaller than the life loss because our commander has lifelink and a bunch of the creatures in the deck have lifelink. We don't really need that big of a life gain package. Plus, the real allure here is the lose life to reanimate side of this card. So we're going to scroll down and draw a hand, and I'll show you what playing a Reanimation engine style Reanimator deck looks like. This is a hand I probably would not keep, so I'll deal another one. Yeah, I'd work with this one. I would keep this one. We're going to draw for going first. We're going to drop a Evolving Wilds first to grab a swamp and then pass around. When it comes back to us, we're going to go ahead and play a forest into a Broodheart engine so we can start surveilling as quick as we can. Pass back around. At the beginning of our upkeep, we're going to surveil. So we look at our top card. Sakura Tribuilder, we will keep there. We'll draw into it. So we're going to play our plains into a Lanalore Loam Speaker, which is just a 2-mana dork. And we'll pass back around. Comes back to us. Going to play a plains here. And then, let's see. We're going to play a Tender Wild Guide with Offspring, so I will get a copy of the Tender Wild Guide. That's a 1/1. Think of both tap for mana. Pass back around. We're going to Surveil one on our upkeep. A Tavern Swindler is actually really nice right now, so we're going to go ahead and play a Canopy Vista, play 2 for a Tavern Swindler. Tavern Swindler, we can tap to pay 3 life. Flip a coin. If we win, we gain 6 life. Both things we want to be doing in this deck, so that's great. We're going to pay 1, a black, and a white for Indulging Patrician. She pings everyone for 3 if we gained more than 3 on our end step, which is definitely going to come in handy. We got a pretty good setup right now. So at this point, we're passing around, coming back to us. We're playing Bader for 5. And we're going to go ahead and swing with a 1/1, or with a 1/4 flying lifelink. Gain 1. Tap the Tavern. We'll even assume we lost the Tavern. Sure. We'll pay 3 life, and we don't gain the 6. That's okay. Go to actually, we're going to pay 2 for a Sakura Tri-Builder, sack Sakura to search our library for a card. We're going to grab another Swamp, and then we are going to go to our end step. We lost 3 life this turn. We gained 1 life this turn. So we're going to put 1/1/1 counter on... We'll put it on Indulging Patrician. So it's a 2/5 now with Bader's gain life ability. And then with Bader's loss of life ability, we lost 3 life this turn off Tavern Swindler, so we will return Sakura Tri-Builder back into play. So we've got a pretty good mana loop now to help us rush out anything big we draw into with our Read the Bones, which is nice. So we're going to Surveil 1 with Broodheart at the beginning, and then get Solemn Offering, which we're going to put in our hand because that's actually pretty useful for us. We're going to then use Read the Bones to scry 2 and then draw 2. Infernal Grasp, Sir Conrad. I say we put Infernal Grasp right there, and then we put Infernal Grasp at the bottom, Conrad at the top. And then we'll draw 2. We get Conrad and a land. We'll play our land. Play Solemn Offering just to like get rid of something on board that's annoying. Swing with Bader, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Swing all out because if they remove anything, we can just get it back with Bader. Sack Sakura if they do anything so we can mana ramp. Pretty good. You're just looking at it right now. You're going to keep doing this over and over and over again. Bader's going to keep supplying 1/1 counters to your small stuff to make it bigger. If we hit anything big off our big mill and stuff, so like we got Vena, Path of Ancestry, Grizzly Salvage. So if we like drop a Grizzly Salvage to hit a Wall of Reverence, Plains, Yashura, that, I mean, we could definitely let that slide, hit all those engrave. Swing with 2 life linkers, enough to get Yashura back into play. When Yashura hits play, we mill 4 cards and return a creature with mana value of 3 or less from our graveyard into play. Again, we can get our Sakura back again. Again, you're like dealing with a Reanimator build that's a little bit more small CMC because it fits more with the Commander's build. And then finally, we're going to talk about Commanders that kind of plug into Reanimator lists naturally and just enhance them, even though they're not inherently Reanimator Commanders. For this, I've got Kess Dissident Mage. This 1, a blue, a black, and a red 3/4 with flying lets you cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard once a turn, and then once you do, it gets exiled. So you get to reuse one of your instants and sorceries each turn. Incredibly good, especially when you're Reanimator, you're on a budget, and 90% of the Reanimator cards on a budget are instants and sorceries that are like 3, 4, 5 drops. Now you get to use them twice. That's way better. Of course, the deck runs 14 bombs. Since it has access to Rakdos, we can run stuff like the Barog, an A8 with cycling, which is really good. Sire of Insanity, make everybody dump their hands. Cedrus, give every creature in your graveyard unearth. You get some cool access. If you're in different colors, Reanimation, you get some cool options. We run a good amount of card draw in the form of creatures, but we also run Tormenting Voices, Thrill of Possibilities, Demand Answers, because they let us discard any big creatures that we have in our hand to then discard 2 cards, which in a Reanimator deck turns out is pretty good. This deck runs 14 ways to mill ourselves. Again, the commander isn't really supplying that, so the deck runs a little bit more of it. 2 pieces of graveyard protection in the form of Perpetual Timepiece. Actually, 3 pieces, because this also runs Sir Conrad. 9 pieces of ramp, as well as 13 pieces of reanimation. Again, because the commander doesn't supply it, we run a pretty good reanimation package in here. And since we're in Grixis, we get access to Felden of the Third Path, which you can just start making token copies of stuff that are artifacts from your grave, and you don't have to exile them. Sack them at the end of turn. We know how good ETBing and then sacking can be with a bunch of our attack and ETB triggers in the deck. 12 pieces of removal, as well as a pretty decent land base. So we're going to scroll down, dish out a hand, and we'll see what one of these decks kind of feels like to pilot. This is a hand I would keep. It's a little bit of a weird one, but I think this is definitely keepable. We'll go first and draw, play our Mountain and pass, into a Prismatic Lens and pass, come back around to us. I think we could probably hit a land off the Faithless. We're going to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. Hit a land. Discard Meteor Golem and Phyrexian Delver, so we've already got 2 pretty good cards in the grave. Play our land for turn, and then we're also going to Painful Truths for 2. We're going to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Okay, this is fine with me. Next turn, we're going to untap. We're going to go ahead and pay 2. We're going to do it like that, though. To tap Shadowblood Ridge to cast Tormenting Voices, discard our 3-fold Thunderhulk, another bomb in the grave, and we'll draw 2 cards. Boom, boom. And we'll play our land for turn. Boom. And off the land for turn, we'll play a Ghostly Pilferer. We like to see it. Pass back around. We're going to go ahead and pay 1 and 2 red for a Felden of the Third Path, so we can start making token copies of stuff with haste from our graveyard. That's going to be very, very useful. And then we'll pay 2 and a black for Victimize. And with Victimize, we're going to crack Ghostly Pilferer, and we can reanimate 2 things into play for free. So I'm thinking Phyrexian Delver, 3-fold Thunderhulk. 3-fold makes us 3/1/1 gnomes. Phyrexian Delver reanimate something when it ETBs. We're going to reanimate Meteor Golem off that. Meteor Golem blows something up when it ETBs. And then, yeah, that's fine with me. We've also got Feld in the third pass. So if Phyrexian Delver ever goes to grave, we've got like a repeatable reanimation chain, which is really, really nice. What I would do from this point on, I would probably flashback Faithless Looting for 2 in a red to draw 2 and discard 2 again. Send it to exile, draw 2, discard a Rakdos and a Mere Battle Sphere, and then I would probably use Kess to recast Victimize from my graveyard. Wherever it went, right here. It'll exile it, we recast Victimize, sack one of the 1/1 gnomes that Threefold Thunderhulk gave us to get back Rakdos and Mere Battlesphere. And, I mean, yeah, you're pretty good at this point. You're just reusing everything. You can reuse Dread Return twice with Kess, Persist twice with Kess, a Diluvian Primordial so we can steal instants and sorceries from other people. Yeah, you're pretty set up, honestly. And Grixis gives you a lot more control, so, like, that feels good with Reanimator because you feel safer doing stuff. But yeah, there's the 3 different approaches you can take. Just kind of more of an in-depth. Again, if you want to look at any of these deck lists, maybe pick them up or want some like card ideas for these type of lists, all 3 of these deck lists are down below on Moxfield. Go check us out, and I'll send it back to, standing up me.
So yeah, I hope this was at all useful, okay? I fucking love Reanimator decks, so thought I'd make this video. This video was inevitable. So here it is. If you want more videos like this, let me know. I'll make more about strategies that I'm getting familiar with. I like tokens as well. Again, like I've said in all the latest videos, you guys are showing an insane amount of support on the videos we've been uploading. Thank you a ton. Just to get back to you guys, we're going to be doing a giveaway soon, so make sure you stay on the channel, subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you can get notified for when we're doing stuff like that. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to show some additional support to the channel, you can head over to the Patreon or the channel members tab down below. It starts as low as $1, and you can submit some of your favorite obscure cards for the list that we include here on the channel, and you can submit your deck list to a deck submission form, and we do Friday night deck reviews where we will take a look at your deck, offer up card suggestions, maybe some cards to cut, whatever you want us to do with it. So if any of that sounds cool, consider doing any of that. I appreciate you guys checking me out. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.